Welcome to Reclamation. We're going to have a beautiful conversation about all things reclaiming our sexual power. And I'm joined by Mish DeVille, who is here with me, coming from Ireland. So, yeah, do you want to just introduce yourself in whatever way feels good to you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I am Mish DeVille. I am a certified sex, love, and relationship coach. I specialize working with women who are going through separation and divorce, and all of that journey that entails. And reclaiming their sexuality through that pathway and rediscovering themselves and reinventing themselves and recreating like who they are in the world. And it's a really beautiful honor to be able to have this, as the career path that I've chosen.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so deeply fulfilling, I'm sure, to like support people go through a really deep, challenging time that
Yeah.
is seen in our society to be, all the wrong things. Like, oh no, you won't want to talk about, your problems with your marriage or your divorce. And so bringing like a space to facilitate that and bring like women into their power through that must be a really amazing rite of passage.
Yeah.
I'm feeling the fire coming through.
Yeah. It is pretty cool.
Yeah, and actually saying rite of passage, that's something that has I've been working with through, the cycles and the seasons of our journeys as women in womanhood. All these cycles that we go through in these different stages, and how important it is to reclaim these rites of passage. And so marriage and divorce are two really profound rites of passage. And it feels like the kind of the birth and the death,
Yeah.
marriage, divorce. And like how can we lean into that from like a deeply feminine perspective, which really is, I feel like how we reclaim is to understand the wisdom behind these stages of our lives, and that they're not just happening and they have no meaning. They're actually incredibly meaningful and make us more of, or bring us into more of ourselves. And I know that yeah, if you're taking women through that must be something that you work with around like this this like how to bring the kind of sacred into these spaces of marriage and divorce.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is bringing the sacred in to the hardest parts of what someone has to experience and go through. Marriage is celebrated. You send out the invitations, you have witnesses, you get presents, you get gifts. Like you're really honored and celebrated in that. And you invite others along on that journey. And so often divorce is solo. And there has been a rise, or there had been this kind of like rise of like divorce parties, and that was kind of like seen as like this. Um, I think it was kind of being shown that women were silly to have this,
Hmm.
but that's what's needed is like this coming together, this celebration of choosing probably one of the hardest things that you could ever possibly go through. Because people don't choose, oh, I'm just gonna get divorced. It's a hard process. It is hard to make the decision. It is a lot of untangling and unraveling, especially if you've got kids. And there's so much loss that a woman has to experience and go through in that whole journey. And so that's why I felt so called to really step up and support women, because I went through a divorce that was hell on earth. And I didn't realize that there was a cycle to it. I didn't realize that there was this journey. Like there's a, what way do you kind of say it? Like there is a stepping stone way to get out of this or to get through it, that you can reclaim parts of yourself, that you can find deeper meaning, that you can find different ways to communicate, and you just really that reclaiming your strength and your power and um your new way of being, because you know that relationship has ended for a reason. And
Mm,
what I work with the women is uncovering the reasons why, what didn't work in that marriage, like how did you show up, and what, you know, what can you heal from deeply here so that you're not going to bring forward into your next relationship. So
mm,
that's what I help support women through. And um I do. I work with grief. So I work. It's a lot of. It's, you know, people shy away from it. You know, it's not somebody where if I say, "Hi, I'm doing grief work," that you know, people would say, "Yeah, I'm going to step into that,"
mm,
because there's so much loss that a woman goes through every step of the way through that, and so it's important to tend to your heart. You
mm,
know, and it's that invitation. And I know that you do you know, that life cycle, you do the cycles with women, and so I also work with seasonal cycles. So the that marriage, that divorce piece is like, I work with like seasonal cycles as well. So that is like your autumn, so you're shedding, you're releasing, you're letting go, there's so much you have to leave behind, and then you go into deep winter, so it's kind of this period of deep rest, of self-reflection, of you know, but you know, like reclaiming the parts of you that you thought had lost, like really figuring out, like, and it can feel like really heavy depression if you don't, you know, if you're not held in that. So that when you fully go into that space, then you can decide, like, what does my life look like going forward? And then you can, you know, it's the planting the seeds of stepping into, like, what does my new reality look like? How do I want to show up in the world? How do I dress? How do I move? Like, um, if I was to go into a relationship, what would that look like? What would I want to experience? And so often with the women, it's like whole new reality of sexual liberation and sexual self.
mm,
Like, it's the kind of Pandora's box has opened and said, like, look what's available to you, because
yeah.
there's this freedom of going and exploring and going, I wonder what is, you know, possible here. And then you go into the summer and it's like fully stepping into that full experience and this full reclamation of yourself, like, you know, who I, you know, really, who am I in the world, and I'm living and breathing that new version of me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. It's so powerful because it's also really being in the stages, because this is something that I feel is really important with our work when we're working with the feminine, is really respecting these different stages of the seasons of autumn. What does autumn like support me with? What medicine is coming through in autumn, in winter, in spring, in summer? And that actually it's really profound because we feel supported by life in a much deeper, like earthy way, because you know we live connected as one with the earth, with nature. So there's this kind of like this remembrance that happens, isn't there, that kind of works on like a cellular level. That's how I kind of see it. We start to like just soften more into our human experience and start feeling more capable, like our capacity expands. So if we're saying like you've taken a woman through this whole process and they're like, whoa, I have so much more capacity than I thought I did. Because
Mm-hmm.
when we get stuck with the thinking, oh, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And we're just thinking, it can feel like, yeah, really overwhelming. But when we bring it down into the body and we bring the feminine in and we really cultivate that, that's where we create such a different experience for ourselves. And that, I mean, that just is so powerful. I mean, once someone has been through a divorce and then a reclamation of self, it's like, whoa, if you can do that, you can pretty much do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of feeling of I really got through something that was deeply challenging, and also a death of a version of self, and then having to rebirth into someone else. And if you have children, that's a big deal, because it's not just you, is it?
No. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's so much harder and more difficult with children, you
Yeah.
know, because you're learning to like move in a new way. You're learning to like take up space in your body, you
Mm.
know. It's so liberating, and also it can feel like, you're growing new skin, and it feels like, needing this space to like step into like who you are. Um, and you're also learning new ways to communicate. So like if your ex is still in the picture, you're learning to build a new relationship with their ex, and
Mhm.
learning to communicate that, and learning to be in a different type of relationship and have that cohesive kind of like conversation always flowing, and it's always moving, and it can be really hard because before, you were that person's person, and you're still in their lives, but you're not their person anymore. You're learning to be who you are outside of them and outside of that relationship. And um that takes this takes time. It takes grit. It takes deep courage, and it takes learning a new skill set, like learning to recognize and notice your emotions, process your emotions, and then step forward and go without that emotion attached, and
Mm.
learning to communicate. Like it's like learning a new language.
Yeah.
It really is learning a new language. And I really always focus with the women that I work with, like where's our focus point? Like what are we working towards?
Mm.
What are we working towards? Noticing it in a five senses reality. Like, what does it look like when I get to the other side of this? What am I smelling, tasting, touching? What am I seeing when I feel free? When I feel aliveness in my body? What would that potentially look like? Sometimes people have experienced it at one point in their life, so that can be like something to connect to. And then sometimes it's no idea, you know? And so those are two different pathways as well, like of discovery. Like, what does it look like if taking small, tiny steps towards like this amazing journey, like going forward?
Yeah, and powerful to have someone there in your corner, because if you're going through a separation, it feels so lonely, like any rite of passage. If it's a death, especially, that you're kind of disconnecting from someone who's been such a big part of your life, like to have someone who's really in your corner, helping you, just kind of really being there for you. I mean, wow, that is such a difference to, say, going through it on your own. And it's not to say you can't go through it on your own, but it just brings through so much more clarity, and I'm sure like just this holding that we kind of long for, and to remember ourselves in times where we feel really lost and disconnected. Um, so it's kind of like you're a death doula and a life doula.
Yeah, I did call myself a death doula for a bit. I've changed it to divorce doula, but I call myself a death doula, and people didn't really get it or understand it. But it is it, it's just like what you said, like it's the death of an old self. It's like a death of an old version of you. You're that death of, you know, long-term partner to this person, the death of like the wife to this person. Um and I work with I do like ceremony of endings, so like bringing closure to the end of something, because sometimes it can just feel like it lingers for so long afterwards. And when we sit in ceremony and we bring closure to something, it's really powerful, and it's like medicine for the soul.
Yeah. And it's that reclamation again of rites of passage, of honoring, I've been through this and I'm bringing my presence and intention, which is calling you into your power, isn't it? That's what I believe ceremony is we're bringing all those fragmented pieces or all of the lessons or all of the teachings, we're bringing them in. We're like calling ourselves in to the next version that wants to come through. We're really there. We're like, yeah, I'm ready for this. I'm ready for it. I'm here. And I really feel that's, why we need ceremony, because it really brings us through and connects us with our creative power. Like, I am claiming this for myself, and that is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
Yes, so powerful. So powerful. And especially, yeah, really holding space for someone else. It's powerful enough when we do it for ourselves, isn't it? But really the honor of holding someone else and witnessing someone else do that it's what women have always done, something that we've forgotten. It's something that we've forgotten. And I feel that so strongly whenever I sit in ceremony or have these conversations like we're having now. Like, oh, we've always done this work. Like, we're made for it. We're cyclical beings who, if you still have your period, we are in that all the time, every month. We are designed to understand the death, birth, rebirth process on a physiological level, as well as emotional and spiritual. And yeah, I'm really feeling excited at where we're at collectively now with the understanding of like our cycles. I feel like there's been a lot of work with women like stepping up and teaching about cyclical wisdom and our menstrual cycles and the power of it. And I mean, if you think about like when I was young, there was no conversation about it, nothing.
No.
It's
Yeah,
just
I was the
the
same.
tampon in and get on.
Yeah, like complete disconnect to our bodies. And so much shame, so
Yeah,
much shame. Yeah.
yeah. Which is what we are really healing from when we're saying yes to ourselves and to reclaiming our bodies and our sexuality and our wombs as well, which is big part of what I do and help women to do, is to reconnect and reclaim their wombs as their seats of power. And that this is like a place where you learn so much about yourself as a woman and learn about what we're talking about, like how to actually call upon our power to move us through these different initiations and different stages of life. And yeah, it feels like coming into talking a bit about grief, because I know that is that's a big part, isn't it? That's a big part of the letting go of the death, that also it can be incredibly scary. And yeah, there's not a lot of support for it. I mean, there is, again, now everything's changing, but it's still not kind of widely known as grief is okay. There's still, again, a lot of shame or uncertainty or just the kind of feelings of I can't do that or I can't cry in public and all of that. So I would love to hear, yeah, you speaking a bit about grief in whatever way you feel cool to, because it is such a big subject.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to, maybe, talk about what you spoke about like the cyclical cycle of the womb, because when a woman connects to that cyclical cycle month after month, you're going through the inner seasonals. You're going through the inner seasons every single week. There is a new season that you're going through. You're going through, and I'll come back to seasons, you know, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. You have that every single um week. And when you connect to that, it brings this deep sense of peace inside of you, and like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm
Yeah.
actually just going through this phase, you know? And when you connect to that, you're like, oh, well, what do I need right now? You know, what I need in spring? What do I need in summer? What do I need in autumn? And in winter, well, I need to cocoon, hibernate, and slow down and disconnect from the world and other people's kind of, you know, thoughts or wisdom. You know, I need to connect to myself. And so you're going through that death and rebirth every month. And when women connect to that, the life transitions feel easier. I want to say easier. I mean, it's like it's an understanding of I will get through this and I won't die.
Yeah. Yeah, the
It's,
essential, like, will I die, which is the kind of the
yeah,
body just like, or the mind just going, am I going to be okay? Am I going to get through this?
yeah. And so when you connect to your seasonal cycle every single month, you realize spring comes after winter. You realize that there is a time frame, especially if you connect to it like every single week. There's a time frame, there's a period where you're in that, and then you know, oh, I'm going to get out of that. And so that teaches the body, like on a body cellular level, and then it teaches your mind that we are cyclical, that we are moving through all of these things. And
Yeah.
so that's what I teach about grief. It's that to it's okay to be with your grief. It's not going to be here forever and you're not going to get lost in it. Because it can feel like this grief is as deep as the ocean. And it can feel like all of the grief that you've packed down in your entire life is ready to be unleashed. And you're like, I can't do this because all of this will come out. And I cannot do this. I cannot survive the depth of the grief that's in my body that wants to come out. So there are like a few different ways that I teach on grief, and it's what I know. I obviously there's there's so much more people. There are people who are more skilled in grief, but um I focus on the areas that I know. And so right now I am a Tai Chi and Qigong teacher. So I teach the meridian stretches for autumn, which is for the lungs. So in our body, we hold grief in our lungs. So when people come to my class, I'm teaching the meridian stretches for the lungs, and
Mhm.
that is opening up the energy pathways in our body to release grief from the body. And so I tell my students, like a lot of people start class in, September, and I'm like, right, well, this is like probably the worst time to join. But so many people have had like a mini breakdown. They have broken after my class. They'll be like, I'm overwhelmed. And I kind of give like a light warning. This will happen or it may happen because you've held everything together for so long. And what you're doing is you're opening the energy of your body. And if this comes through, your body feels safe enough to release it and that it's okay. And so to support people with their grief, I say, give yourself, don't say like, I'm going to stuff that back down. Like,
Yeah.
say, right, if you're in public and you feel like you're about to cry, you just tell your body, not right now. I know that you're there and I will tend to you afterwards. So you're kind of giving yourself your permission, you're acknowledging how your body feels, and you're saying, right, not here, but we will tend to this when we get home. And like putting on a song that you know where the tears are going to come. You know, everyone has a song
Yeah.
that just breaks them. And you can just sit and cry for that length of that song. So it's 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and just go, right. that's my time frame. When that time is up, I know that I can stop, but I've kind of like loosened it a little bit to let a little bit of it out. And then sometimes I bring the invitation to watch a movie. There's also what movie makes you want to cry? That doesn't send you into like a spiraling of depression, but like what is something that you know that is heartbreaking and that you know in that time frame that you can go, I can cry in this movie. And sometimes it's only 30 seconds or a minute whenever that one thing happens, you know, and and then it's done, you know, but you've give yourself permission. Okay, I'm giving myself permission to do this. Like even if you just try that out once, and you're building this relationship with your body that it's safe to let the tears out, you know. So that is kind of that's what I teach whenever people come to my Tai Chi class, whenever I talk about briefly, like how can I meet my grief here? And the other one is it's sometimes, you know, one of the biggest things is we can attach a story to the grief, or we can hold on to the grief because we need to feel the pain of this because we feel like we've either done something wrong, we haven't showed up in life the way we should have, we are deserving of feeling this pain. So we want to find the story or the origin of like, why am I feeling this way? But so often it's just a sensation in the body. I recognize and notice that this is grief and I don't need to have a story and it's safe for me to let this go. So you're building this new relationship with grief and you're connecting it to sensation in your body. And it creates this safety and this trust that that can be released. And when you release grief from your body, it gets to be turned into and transformed into loving kindness. Because grief is, you know, so much love with nowhere to go. You know, you held so much love, and now it's like, you know, there's this big emptiness, and it's like, you know, it's forming that new relationship, and it feels so painful. And it's okay to feel sad, and it's okay to grieve, you know. And I really want to give anybody that's listening, or anybody that you know wants to feel about grief is that it's safe and it's okay to cry, and it's safe and okay to release it, and it's safe and it's okay to be sad. And yeah, so one of the other things that I work with clients is giving yourself a time frame. So if
Yeah.
you know that you are grieving something, that you're really deeply sad, so you know, for example, just staying with relationships, if you're going through a separation, if you're going through a breakup, if you're going through a divorce, it's like giving yourself permission to grieve. And so often people don't realize that what they're feeling inside is grief. It can come up as anger, as frustration, of all of these things. But when people are ready, when they recognize and notice, oh, this is grief here, then it's giving yourself a time frame. You know, how long do I need to feel sad about this situation? How long do I need to give myself permission to work through this? You know, so it's like I give people like different steps to work through with the grief, like 5 minutes a week, you know, things like that, or 5 minutes a day. And it's like, what is the perimeters here that I'm giving myself permission to just allow myself to be in this grief? It could be a month. So often it's not. If it's a short breakup, if you have just been dating somebody, like after, I work with people who are dating after divorce, if it's like that time, it's like give yourself a perimeter. Sometimes it's a month. Like you deeply loved, you allowed yourself to be vulnerable. Can I? And I'm like, you know, you've only been in a few dates, but yeah, you deeply connected and loved this person. So you can give yourself a month. Sometimes it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, you know, depending on the devastation or whatever you went through or all of the muddiness. It's knowing that there's an end point and that you can give yourself full permission to go through this experience in a held space, obviously, because sometimes it can be terrifying to step into it. And so yeah, and it's if you broke up with friends, you know, it's losing that friendship and that sisterhood. It's like what we don't realize is that deep pain that happens inside of our body when we lose someone who we deeply cared about. So you can do that with losing friendships and things like that. So That's where I work with grief, and I feel that it is yeah, really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. That was really rich. And also the different forms of relationship. I feel like that's really important because it's not just the romantic or the long connections that we have. Sometimes we meet people and we really connect so deeply on a really deep level, and then, you know, circumstance or whatever, we then, you know, don't talk to that person, we don't see them, or what. There are so many different forms of like that feeling of grief, and how to, yeah, where to, what to do with it, how to actually help instead of push it down, because we're so conditioned to not feel things and to push things down, and that's the way to cope. But it will always want to find a way to come out somehow. So it's very, very powerful to be, you know, taking like a stand for yourself. That's how I see it. It's like this is a really powerful way to love yourself very deeply, is tend to your grief, tend to yeah, the parts that really need to be seen. I know that that is really what we do with this work, is tending to the deeper parts of self that really want to be seen, and that we haven't maybe had a space to, maybe even, you know, as children we weren't given a space to express ourselves, our emotions, our needs, whatever it is. We all have a different story, but when we work with the feminine, when we work with this deeper wisdom of like feeling, emotion, it is so transformational on so many levels, isn't it? Like, to tend to your grief might mean that it opens up something in your life. And that's what I find quite magical, is that we never really know what part of our life is going to be transformed by us feeling what we need to feel. Like
Yeah.
the grief, the rage, the you know, the joy, the bliss, the pleasure. It all opens us up to more. And I feel like that's important as well, to say that the darker, the deeper emotions like rage and grief are just as important and powerful as the bliss and the pleasure, for connection, for connecting with ourselves, for connecting with, you know, love and what we want, and really being able to yeah, choose that for ourselves. It's about, you know, feeling the whole range of our emotions. And I know in my journey that's been so big, to reclaim grief and rage, to open up to more
And
capacity.
they're so connected,
Yeah.
like grief and rage. And yeah, last weekend I was at a retreat, and I felt this grief energy was so strong in my body. And when I moved through it, anger came, you
Yeah.
know, this deep anger of like, um, this deep frustration of like, that was not love, like, how dare you show me, just through experience, like, like from another person showing you this is what love is. And I was like, that was not love, like, and really screaming it, and letting that anger come out.
Mm.
And what happened was the softness of grief came. Like, it didn't feel like this deep ocean well. It was just like tears came. Like, it was this gentle softness, but that rage needed to come through so like strongly, because it was such a big feeling and energy in my body, you know? Um, yeah.
Yeah, and this is the time of year, talking about seasons, where we're going into the dark time, or we're already in it. And this is where, you know, grief and anger and these deeper parts of self actually want to be felt. When it's summer, we can kind of avoid them because the sun is out and it's like, woohoo, I don't need to feel that. I don't need to feel that. Like, let's keep going. There's a real like outward energy to it. Whereas when we come into the winter and the dark time, it's about coming in, it's about drawing in, it's about tending to ourselves, to whatever it is that we need to process, especially now, and release, and just really meet ourselves. Like, how can I love myself right now? What do I need? And that's the, the shadow work, the deeper undercurrent of our experience. And I feel like that is so important. Each year, each cycle that I've come into winter, I've softened more. I used to go away in the winter, which probably quite a lot of people do. Like, I don't want to be here in the winter. I don't want to like feel this, or I'll just drink a lot. Is also, what happens, and go to the pub all the time, and then I'll, process my stuff that way. Not that I was thinking consciously of that, but it's like that the avoidance of feeling like I know that so deeply in myself, and the difference between when I was avoiding feeling and trying to get away from it all the time, and now when I lean into it, it's just such different experience, because I feel empowered. Don't feel like I have to run away or get away, or like not be who I am in the moments where I feel it all. I can feel empowered and move through it. And yeah, I think that moving through it is important, with like tools like you were sharing, and creativity I find really powerful. Creative alchemy. How can I move my body? How can I feel? How can I paint my expression? How can I like move and dance and whatever it is, vocalize it? There are so many powerful ways of moving through our emotions, and yeah, it's great work. I really love it.
Like, I really do want to say, it probably sounds so heavy, but I want to say that each time that I feel that my heart is cracking, like there is a piece of grief that's arising, or like I feel like I've lost something or lost potential of something, that my heart opens so much wider to love.
Yeah.
Like, you spoke before about capacity. Like, my capacity for love becomes so much wider, you know? And it's like amazing, I just, like, it's like, I don't even describe it. Sorry, hold on. I'm just on a call. Please do not speak. Sorry about that.
Okay.
My little one, she's sick today, so I was just,
Oh,
yeah, so I just, sorry about that.
sorry.
But yeah, like, I really want to say, like, sometimes you don't realize how much love you're capable of experiencing in your body or your life. Like, I never knew what
Mm-hmm.
I was capable of. And like, when we feel our emotions, when we move through it, whenever we have the capacity to change. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when we stay in heartbreak or we're feeling angry, there can be, um, I want to say, like, drama loops.
Yeah.
Like, you get stuck into the drama of the situation, or the hurt, and the fighting back and forth, and with people that you're breaking up with, or things like that. And and there's just internal fight, and then there's an external fight. But when you move away from drama and you connect with yourself, and you move through that internal struggle of yourself, like, you're opening to wider availability of love, of passion, of creativity, of, like, connectedness to another person, so that the availability after your separation and divorce is, like, awakening to that new version of yourself, that who is open and available to anything is possible in life, to, you know, your creativity, to your wildness, to your fullest self-expression, to your wildness in your bedroom, like the what is available for me in this lifetime. And if you're seeing glimpses of people in life, you know, feeling or, you know, expressing their creativity or their aliveness or their fullest expression, that's available to you too,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important. That's like, it's available to all of us. There's not just like a select few people who have the secret sauce. It's really courage, isn't it? Courage to meet ourselves and to yeah, go there and follow the feeling. If you know that there's something calling you, and that you know that you're ready for something else, that is the indicator to go for it and to take that next step. And yeah, life continues and it keeps going, and there's so much there for you. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I want to just like retouch on, like, even though we're in the seasons right now, so autumn and then we're, you know, we're going into winter, it's like remembering that we have that inner seasonal cycle as we go through. So we're not like fully in autumn all the time, or we need to sit and grieve all the time, or we're in winter where we need to sit and feel all of our feelings like for the whole time. It's remembering to get glimpses of playfulness, of like expansiveness, and also remembering you can continue going through that season. So remembering to tap into joy and fun and playfulness is so key.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah, for sure. That's the expression part. That's what I find helps, is like, right, how can I like bring this in a way that I'm excited about as well, that fills me with joy? Like, what is it that I love? Do I love to dance? Do I love to paint? Do I love to sing? What is it that I love to, how do I want to express this as well? Um, yeah, I love that reminder. It's important when we talk about the deeper topics, isn't it?
yeah, like, and like, because the only way through is pleasure. The only way through is tapping into pleasure, because pleasure regulates your nervous system and it helps to smooth all the frayed edges as you're meeting these edges, as you're meeting these places for growth, as you're meeting these places where you need to have conversations, or you need to, like, you know, complete the cycle of the past of your life. It's so important to remember pleasure,
Yeah, yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. And we can get so like we can get so like mean as well, can't we? Where it's like, oh, now I just have to be in this, and it's like, no, pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. And that's a constant learning in itself, isn't it? I know it has been for me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I get pleasure. Oh yeah, okay, I get pleasure. Yes, more pleasure. And that it doesn't just come naturally. You do have to say yes to it. And especially when we're going through these deeper cycles of our lives, is yeah, to be reminded of that is really, really good. And to have things that remind you of that. I mean, sometimes for me it's just like going out and seeing my friends. I'm like, oh, I really needed this. I really needed this. Or it's going for a walk, or it's, you know, having a cup of tea, or whatever it is. It can be as simple. It's, yeah, really practicing pleasure in your daily life that will help you to feel more connected.
Yeah. And help you get through the, like, the long dark nights that feel like this never ending cycle that you're moving through. It's that, and I have to keep reminding myself of that as well, you know, because it's so important.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's again, it's that, it's springtime within that cycle. Like, what do I love? And sometimes you don't know because you're so disconnected. You know, you've give yourself all of yourself to everyone else. And so you're going on this journey of like, what do I like? What tea do I like? What do I like to eat? You know, who in my friendship group do like brings me joy, or how do we connect with, like, what do I like to do? And sometimes there's a blank canvas and you're just beginning again, but that's part of that reclamation of that journey. And then you lead into like, and then that leads you into your sexual self as well. Like, because some people have no desire for sex after going through all of that. And I like to share is like, that's because your body's in winter. Like your body is in winter and it's stopped and it's not desiring anything because it needs a deep pause, it needs a deep rest. And how can you be with your winter body? And how can you learn like this new connection with your body? Like sometimes I say, like, if you're an alien coming down to Earth for the very first time, you're just rediscovering, or you're just discovering things like, so what would that look like? And it gives you this blank slate, blank canvas, permission to go, oh, like what's here, you know?
Yeah. Woo! Juicy. Wow, what a great conversation. I want to know what your cat is called. I love cats.
Uh, She has a story. This is Pax. She is the goddess of peace. Pax, Pix. So the goddess of peace.
Mhm.
And be careful what you call your animals. I went through the worst period of my life, and I thought I was coming through the other side, and I was plunged into deep darkness. So I got a cat, thinking I'll get a cat called Peace, and it'll be, like I peace will be drawn to me. And what I discovered was she has brought me everything that is the opposite of peace. And I had to find peace inside of me to meet her, because
Wow.
she is like the how do I even describe her? She is the worst badly behaved cat. So I had to dig deep to find peace with her. So she's called Pax. Yeah. So yeah,
She- She's the guru.
she
Find it
is.
in yourself.
That was the biggest lesson. Yeah. Yeah. That's about life. I think sometimes we can feel that like everyone else has the answers,
Mm.
but we find it within ourselves, and it's just applying that repeatedly every single day over and over again. Can I be peaceful in this despite what's going on around me? You know?
Yeah, yeah. That's a great lesson all the time.
Yeah. So that's Pax.
Thanks, Pex, for being part of the conversation.
Yeah, she likes to take up a bit of lots of space.
Yeah, I like that. When she came in, I was like, oh yeah, she's like, woohoo, I want to get in on this. Well, amazing. Thank you. And I'm going to put all your links in a bit about you under here, under the video. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, reach out, let us know. Also, put any comments below of anything that is, yeah, is moving you. I love to hear, and I'm sure you would as well, Mish. It's like the conversation is great to have, and then to have that like extended conversation if you want to bring any questions or anything that you're feeling, we are here, and would love to hear from you. So yeah, thank you so much. See you soon.